The city of Philadephia issued an apology on Thursday for the unethical medical experiments performed on mostly black inmates from its Holmesburg Prison from 1950s through 1970s. Hi, I'm Lady T, and welcome back to the channel.
It really was the Kmart of human experimentation from 1951 to 1974.
Holmesburg Prison closed in 1996, but Alan Hornblum says what happened during the 50s, 60s, and 70s will live on forever. The researcher showed us photos inside his book, Acres of Skin.
What you see in this bottom picture is the prototypic experiment that took place at Holmesburg. In some cases, it could just be very plain soap. In other cases, it could be a carcinogenic chemical. The inmates were never told.
Hornblum was a literacy instructor at the prison in the 1970s when he noticed many black prisoners in bad shape. He says UPenn dermatologist Albert Kligman led experiments on prisoners. The inmates were paid $1 a day, but it cost them their health. For his book, Hornblum spoke to Dr. Kligman before he died in 2010.
He thought what took place here was fine. According to his observation, the inmates were treated fairly.
Philadephia shut down the experiments in 1974. 2 years after the Tuskegee syphilis experiment made national headlines. But the damage to the former inmates was already done.
They have lots of fears and regrets. They never really learned what they were testing or being injected with.
In the apology, Kenny acknowledged the history of medical racism in the United States, along with the trauma it have created in many communities of color. Without excuse, we formally and officially extend a sincere apology to those who were subject to this humane and horrific abuse. We are also sorry that it took this long to hear these words. To the families and loved ones across generations who have been impacted by this deplorable chapter in our city's history, hopefully this formal apology brings you at least a small measure of closure. Beginning in 1951 and lasting 23 years until 1974, city officials in Philadephia allowed Dr. Albert Kligman and the University of Pennsylvania to perform experiments mostly on black male inmates awaiting to make bail. The almost 300 inmates was exposed to a variety of viruses, fungus, asbestos, pharmaceuticals, and even a component in the Agent Orange, a drug used in chemical warfare. Many of the men used in the experiment was also illiterate. Kligman, who would be the pioneer for the acne and wrinkle treatment Retin-A, died in 2010. Many of the former inmates would have lifelong scars and health issues from the experiments. The group of inmates filed a lawsuit against the university in Kligman in 2000 that was ultimately thrown out because of the statute of limitations. In 2020, the University of Pennsylvania issued a formal apology and took Klingman's name off an honorific like an annual lecture series and professorship. The university also directed research funds to focus on dermatologist issues and the people of color. Thursday's apology came after activists in Pennsylvania began calling for the city to formally apologize and admit its role in conducting of these experiments. Guys, for centuries, evil experiments have been performed on women, prisoners, children, gays, and of course blacks. And among those experiments, we have one of the most famous ones is the Tuskegee Experiment. The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male was a study conducted between 1932 to 1972 by the United States Public Health Service and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on a group of nearly 400 African Americans with syphilis. Another experiment on black cancer patients from 1960 until 1971, Dr. Eugene Singer, a radiologist at the University of Cincinnati, led an experiment exposing 88 cancer patients, poor and mostly black, to whole body radiation, even though this sort of treatment had already been pretty well discredited for the types of cancer these patients had. The third one, which is Miss Henrietta Lacks. She was an African American woman whose cancer cells was taken in 1951 without her or her family's permission and used to generate the Heloid cell line. The world's first immortalized human cell line, the only human cell line able to reproduce indefinitely. Then we have the countless slave experiments, such as we have British doctors performing smallpox experiments on 850 slaves in the 18th century rural Jamaica. Then we have the man considered the father of modern gynecology, J. Marion Sims, who conducted numerous experiments on female slaves between 1845 and 1849. Sims carried out his experiments on women's genitalia from 1845 to 1849 without anesthesia, which had recently been introduced. In addition to their status as enslaved people, black women was considered appropriate subjects for such experiments based on the widespread belief that black people experience less pain than white people. Let's be real, they have been treating us like medical guinea pigs since slavery, and it still goes on today. There's currently a lawsuit in Arkansas where 4 black inmates is suing because they gave those men injections to experiment the effects on certain drugs and vaccines and how the effect on the C-19 virus. They are still experimenting on black inmates and systematically use of the justice system to keep the black people economically down. It's just done more assiduous ways. They use drugs, gang wars, black markets, and now the justice system. It's a never-ending cycle and a session that these demonic people have with black people, and is not making things better. Here we have another Ivy League school issuing an empty do-nothing apology for the past atrocities against black people, for which they have no intention of making right. Black lives were seen as expendable, that they would expose them to viruses, fungus, etc. This pure evil. An apology for such disgusting and humane abuse isn't worth anything without compensation. Put your money where your mouth is. Apologize, and they refuse to give them money because of limitation, as if the negative effect on their health had any type of limitation on it. Many of those medical experiments done to our ancestors caused diseases and disorders that was literally passed down genetically and directly affect many of us today. An apology 50, 60, or 70 years later, when everyone involved is dead or almost have a foot in the grave, is not an apology, it's bullcrap. The first apology will be monetary compensation for the families affected. The U.S. owes black Americans the blood, sweat, tears, and reparation, not just some whack behind apology. Oh, we're sorry. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's continue the conversation down below in the comments. Make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss an upload. I'm Lady T. I'll catch you the next time. Be blessed. Bye.